We continue our discussion on developing the heat model. We discussed in a few sessions. First, what is the heat model of the mind? How is it a full model, a complete school? Then we took a look at its philosophy. In the third part, we took a look at its elementals. Fourth part, we took a look at its broad healing approach. And today, fifth part and the second part in healing, we take a look at slightly more in details the healing approach of heat. So let us go into it. We can divide the healing process of heat in 5 phases, and each phase can be subdivided. First phase is case history. What are the sub parts of case history? We have done in a lecture before. Second part is psychological testing, details of which we have discussed in another session before. Third part is pathogenesis, and in that pathogenesis, we take a look at what is the problem, how do we understand the problem from a psychoanalytic standpoint, deploying all the schools of psychoanalysis, and how do we look at the causality of the same problem, deploying psychological theories of the East. So from East and West standpoint, how do we understand the causality of the problem we are dealing with? So we first go into the established knowledge which we already have of all the schools of East and West as much as we know, in understanding the different causality explanations for the problem we have. Then we go deeper into the heat aspect, heat approach of it. Which body of the 5 bodies that we take into consideration in heat and also in the Eastern schools, which body is the one where the problem starts in a substantial way and then spreads out its tentacles into other bodies. So which body should we take the vantage point as the origin body? And then for each of the 5 bodies, we try to understand it in details as much as we can. The physical body is understood by psychiatry. If we know it, better. If we don't know it, we can leave that part. Second onwards is something we ought to know as psychotherapists of heat. So we used pranic healing system to draw up how much each body is affected, how much each chakra is depleted or overloaded, where are the blocks, and find out if there is something karmic or non-karmic into it. So that will give us an essential map of each of the 5 bodies. Then we go into more details in 2 aspects, the emotional aspect and the cognitive aspect. The emotional body working, we understand slightly more deeply using the concept of essential affect cycle, which we have done in the lecture before. And we also take a look at, when it comes to the thought body, essential epistemological process, which we have done before. And then we take a look at which elementals are being affected, which elementals are central to be worked upon, which also we have looked into before. So this gives us a broad pathogenesis. Pathogenesis more elaborate than classical pathogenesis. We take into account East and West, all the bodies, all the chakras, not all the chakras, some of the major chakras. We go into essential working of all the bodies, essential effect cycle, essential epistemological process, and the elementals which are central. Then phase 4, we go into treatment plan based upon what we find here. In 3, we draw up a holistic treatment plan, and in holistic treatment plan there are two parts: how to use, which of the options to use from the whole basket of holistic healing, and how to use them chronologically and to what degree in intensity. So this is a individual to individual exercise, but it's a very necessary exercise. Calls for experience, and what is the basket of holistic therapy, that we'll see in the next slide. And then we go into the therapy part of it. That out of many parts of holistic therapy, one part is the classical psychoanalytic psychotherapy, and that is customized to need, and it goes into these 5 parts. We start with the first part of our therapy, which focuses on safety and self-expression. Very cohesion. Safety part is very cohesion. Self-expression part is very Lacanian. Not in the strict Lacanian sense, but in the sense of articulation of desire. Then we go into problem analysis, where we do the cognitive work. Then we go into psychoanalytic interpretation, the classical psychoanalytic work. Then we go into affect release using ISTDP, EDT, AUM. And then we go into practicing of change in real life, which puts into practice all the work that we have done before. There the behavioral element comes in. So this is a 5-step broad healing process of it. Now let us look at the whole basket of heat, from which we have to pick and choose what to use, how much to use, to what intensity to use. So if we look here, on this part, it's either the body or something very important, some core element. We just correct it. So in this line, we have the elements, the 5 bodies: physical, energy, emotional, thought, and karmic. And then we have here yin and yang, a very important element in therapy. It's not a body, it is an entity, but very important entity. And then we have the self or the soul. So 5 bodies, yin and yang, and the self. 7 elements are here. 5 are bodies and 2 important elements. One important element is yin and yang, second is the self. And when we focus on the self, we focus on the self journey. So we have discussed before that 2 supra will elements in the human part, human personality, are the karmic element and the self journey element. So in understanding each of these bodies or these entities, what do we understand? How do we understand the physical body? When we have to understand the physical body, essentially we focus on the neurochemistry and physiology. This is the system that we have to understand this body. We may not have to understand the whole of the body. If we understand this system, it's enough for our purposes. And in this system, we have to focus on certain critical entities. And if we take a focus on this system, the existing sciences which can help us are this. And how to use that depends on the person. Which of them to use, how much to use, in which chronology to use, or to pick up only one from here. That depends upon the problem that we are facing. For example, The second element, the energy body. What do we have to focus upon it? We essentially focus upon prana, chakra and nadi, and essentially we focus upon the chakra, the main chakras, not all the chakras, the chakra strength, the blockage and the depletion. What are the schools we have to help us in this? If we have to work on energy body, we have Reiki, pranic healing. So if we have to work on physical body, we focus on this system, within the system, these elementals, and we take the help of this existing schools of knowledge. Similarly, if we have to work on energy body, we focus on this system of this whole body. We don't have to focus on the whole body and the whole philosophy related to that body. We just focus on a few systems. Within the few system, a few critical elements, and Reiki, pranic healing, acupressure, yoga, tai chi, kriya yoga. These are some of the sciences which can help us in purifying this energy body, healing the energy body. Which of these to use? How much, in what chronology, that depends from person to person. Then we come to the emotional body, and what we focus upon in heat is not the whole emotional body, just as we don't focus on the whole of either physical or energy body. Within the emotional system, we essentially focus upon essential affect system. Within that, the heat elementals. We have studied this before. Strength of the stimulus, strength of the desire, sensitivity, life energy, affect generated, affect regulated, excess affect, symptom formation. We have studied that before. So we focus on those heat elements, and then we use, for dealing with the emotional body, we use sciences of psychoanalysis, ISTDP, EDT, emotion-centered therapy, meditation workshops like OM, and affect-focused workshops. There are many workshops which are focused on a single affect. Anger workshop, pain workshop, guilt workshop. So these are affect-focused workshops. Then we come to the thought body, and there we focus essentially on epistemology. We don't go into the philosophy of knowing or the philosophy of meaning. That will take us too far into philosophy. So while dealing with any body, we focus only on those parts which are useful for healing. So here we focus on epistemology. Within that, the heat elements, which is essentially modification of Immanuel Kant's theory, something added to it. And in terms of existing knowledge, we use knowledge from CT, CBT, REBT, scholastic philosophy, Immanuel Kant. How to use it? Again, person-specific problem. Then we come to yin and yang, and we refer to the Purush Prakriti system of Sankhya. Within the elementals, we focus on these things: masculinity, femininity, acceptance, integration. Schools which we use are Sankhya, Shaivism, Tantra, and workshops. Again, application is person-specific. Karmic body, we use Indian spirituality. We focus upon self-karma, collective karma. We use Hindu, Buddhist, Jain schools. Also, we use a lot of pranic healing school. So, pranic healing school is very good in this. That also we use. Forgot to mention it here. Same application is person-oriented. Self-journey, we do personality analysis. Some people use astrology, palmistry, clairvoyance. I don't, but some people do. We go into self-journey, journey of the universe, how both of us can understand it. One can go into deeper self-analysis, past life regression, classical psychoanalysis, spirituality, to understand the self-journey, how the will and destiny are working it out, how the specifics of life, why one was born in a particular place in a particular time, and how certain destined events have shaped life. All of that one can go into to find out the karmic part and the self journey as much as one can. Application, again, person specific. Now, which of these bodies to focus upon, maybe one, maybe more than one, maybe all. How to go about picking and choosing, because in dealing with each school we have many options which to choose. And if we choose three, let us say we want to work on energy body, yin and yang, and self journey, then in each of them we have so many options, which of them to choose, and create a basket of treatment plan, and how to put it in chronological order, to what intensity, and should it be flexible or not flexible. Of course it should be flexible based upon outcomes. As we go along we learn in the healing process, but all of that is based upon experience. It's very difficult to lay down guidelines. Maybe if we practice it for 5-10 years down the line we should have guidelines, but at the moment it is more experiential and judgmental, based on judgment. So which schools to use, which bodies to focus upon, which elements to focus upon, which schools to use, how much of it, and within each school there are many tools, which tool to use, and thereby create a treatment plan and a basket of tools for any person that differs from person to person. At present we don't have guidelines. 5 years down the line we may. At present it is more based on experience and judgment. Now let us go into the 5 phases of the heat treatment. We saw it here. Phase 1 to 5. Let us go into the details of them. Phase 1, this is also called a process-oriented psychotherapy, where rather than focusing on any particular school, you focus on a phased process, and in each phase you have a distinct focus and goal, and you can use multiplicity of schools to achieve that focus and goal. So phase 1 is developing the feeling of safety and facilitating self-expression. Allow the person to unload himself completely, express himself in safety, and articulate his desire as much as possible. So the focus is on development of safety, positivity, understanding sensitivity, asking the person to narrate his story as exhaustively as he can, and then move to a focused articulation of desire, and move from desire at the surface to desire at the preconscious, to desire on the higher part of the unconscious, to the psychotic core, where the articulation becomes so free that the articulation becomes psychotic. Not psychotic in the sense that you don't come back from there, but you articulate without a concern for coherence, rationality, or language. And to do it, keeping the ego intact requires high amount of capability on part of both the patient and the therapist. Very few people are able to go to that depth of articulation of desire. If you go to that depth, then there is a possibility of the articulation exhausting itself. The desire exhausts itself in a peculiar way in articulation. Not completely, it is a partial exhaustion, but still a partial exhaustion. Then we go to affect expression. How safe one feels in expressing one's affect. First in then and there and the third person, then here and now with the therapist. And to internalize the peace and silence that one feels in the session. And there we have to do a lot of containment and allow the peace and silence with least interventions. Allow the person to internalize the peace and to be with somebody, and yet allow the peace to exist without any conversation. Phase 2 is the cognitive work. the work of analyzing the problem, the individual's own analysis. First we ask him to do it, then help him arrive at a deeper analysis using our knowledge and experience. Take a cost benefit analysis of the problem, what cost he has paid till now and what cost he is likely to pay in future, and then ask him if he really feels the cost is worth the benefit, and if no, then we arrive at together a positive goal, but the goal has to largely come from the patient, and then develop an action plan how to go about it. And this is the cognitive work, the problem analysis. Phase 3 is going into classical psychoanalysis, free association, narrating of events, how something is playing out in life. And from there we take a look at, from psychoanalytic standpoint, what is at play. We do interventions, we do interpretations. Going into how different it would be without the problems to strengthen the positive goal. And a very deep inquiry into what happens when X, the problem happens in real life. How does it happen deep inside when something is happening? Some problem is at play in real life. Going into dreams and fantasies, very important. Can't stress enough how important dream analysis is. Very important to stress the importance of the conscious higher mind versus the unconscious child mind. That the conscious higher mind wants something else, and the unconscious child mind continues with its own infantile work and holds on to pathology. So this is very important to make the person realize and see very clearly, vividly in front of him, the conflict inside of him between his conscious higher mind and his unconscious child mind, and the need to heal the unconscious child mind and to take the wisdom of the conscious higher mind into the unconscious child mind. In Freud's words, where id is, there ego should be. And we'll take a look at what templates are at work. What are the automatic schemas the person uses? The automatic response mechanisms, the automatic interpretative mechanisms, the automatic behavioral mechanisms the person uses. So this is classical psychoanalysis, to be aware of things, to arrive at some part of catharsis, may not be very deep catharsis, but definitely some form of catharsis. Self-acceptance and reality acceptance. Working in here and now with the therapist, which can help restructure the unconscious relating patterns. Phase 4 is affect release, where we try to release huge volumes of affect, not incremental catharsis of classical psychoanalysis, but large volumes of affect. Techniques for that can be ISTDP, emotion-centered therapies, affect-specific workshops. A very good group meditation is OM. It's the full form is Awareness, Understanding, and Meditation. It's a 3-hour group meditation developed by a Osho Sannyasi Viresh. I think it's offered by Human University. And some people who are, some experts who are certified by Human University. EDT is one more route or tool or approach to large affect release. Storytelling and story listening, or watching a movie or making a movie. In Tantra, there is a approach called Avishkar, where one chooses a character, dresses up like that person, almost calls the spirit of the person into oneself and lives it out, which almost looks like a invited psychosis, but it has its own therapeutic, very deep value. We are yet to evaluate it and scientifically appreciate it. There is also this entire area of idol therapy, which is very good for uh, huge affect release and devotional music. Forgot to mention. Or we can use psychodrama, which is very near to this, to release voluminous affect. Phase 5 is after the affect release is done, restructuring happens. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. So living beyond reflecting. So not only reflecting and catharsis and restructuring, but putting it into real life. So it is a question of practice. And as one goes into practice, certain problems come up which have to be removed or worked through. And once you are able to do it once or twice, consolidate the new normal. One can take help of behavioral experiments also, where artificial situation is created and the person is taken there to start the process of putting something into practice if naturally the situations don't occur. One can also use a very powerful tool of gradual challenge encounter to solidify, consolidate the change. Observe the difficulty, whatever remains, if anything, and ultimately try to establish in a stable way the good state, the goal state. So these are the 5 phases of it. This practice is the last thing where we actually live out the change. Living beyond reflecting, living beyond catharsis, living beyond restructuring. Living is the last goal. Thank you. If you have any questions, write to me at hvindia@gmail.com.